Senator Smith.
Thanks very much, Chair. Just before we go to the break, Minister, there's been a bit of conjecture, discussion in the last few days about whether or not the government will engage in an advertising campaign around the budget measures. But before I ask you to clarify what is the actual situation, Secretary, can I just confirm with you that the response you gave to Senator Mackenzie's question at the last estimates in regards to government advertising is correct? It's the question reference number F32, and it details the advertising of the previous government, and it says that in 2008-2009 there was a $130 million media spend. In 2009-10 there was a $114.7 million media spend. In 2010-11 there was a $116.9 million media spend. In 2011-12 there was a $139.7 million media spend. In 2012-13 there was a $138.9 million media spend, which, if my math is correct, brings it to a total of $640 million in the period 2008-9 to 2012-13. It's a question on notice, response to question on notice F32.
I have it in front of me, Senator. Yes, yes, and there's no change to that.
Great, thanks very much. That's a very generous advertising spend on the part of the former government. I'm not surprised we've not heard...
The former government also allocated $38.5 million to promote and advertise the resources super profits tax, which became the minerals resource rent tax,
is that more than
which is now costing the budget money. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'm surprised we're not hearing more from commercial television stations and newspapers around the government's budget measures, but I'll come to that in a moment. Minister, can you just confirm what is the government's position around advertising budget measures?
Well, the conjecture that you referred to before is wrong, and it was caused by some dishonest hyperbole by the Leader of the Opposition on Tuesday, when he asserted, in fact, he asked the Prime Minister a question in the House of Representatives, which went like this: why did the Minister for Finance outline the details of a taxpayer-funded propaganda campaign to sell the budget? Of course, that question was a complete invention. At no time did I provide any detail on any taxpayer-funded advertising campaign to sell the budget. We're not planning a taxpayer-funded advertising campaign to sell the budget. In fact, what I can refer you to is page 113 in Budget Paper 2, where you will see that page 113, we are reducing by $43.3 million the government's communications budget, which is another significant saving in this space, which comes on top of savings, of course, that we took to the last election. We will also achieve $530 million in savings by cutting waste and duplication in government administration by reducing the number of government bodies. What I did say in 2 interviews on Tuesday morning, and what I stand by, is that the government will continue to ensure that people who are impacted by changes in the budget are informed about how those changes will impact on them and how those changes will not impact on them. And what I added as a qualifier is that the government would do that in the usual way. And of course, it is our responsibility to ensure that people who are impacted by changes in the budget are appropriately informed about how those changes will impact on them, which is what we've been doing for the last 2 weeks. Indeed, the publication of the budget papers arguably is a part of that, and the publication of a series of related documents which have been published by this government in the same way as the previous government are part of that, and communications by members of parliament with their constituents are part of that. So let me just say again very clearly, at no point did I or anybody else in government, contrary to the dishonest assertions of the Leader of the Opposition, which don't do him any credit at all. At no point did any of us provide any detail of a taxpayer-funded advertising campaign to sell the budget. There is no such plan, but we will continue to do what we have a responsibility to do, which is to explain the budget, which is to ensure that people impacted by changes in the budget, who are confronted with a lot of misinformation, including, dare I say, from the Labour Party, are not necessarily scared by scare campaigns, by misinformed and dishonest scare campaigns that are initiated for political purposes.
Thanks, Minister. Before I refer to my colleague, Senator McKenzie, Secretary, was the department asked for its advice or asked to comment on those government advertising campaigns that were conducted during the caretaker period?
Sorry, asked to comment?
Yes, well, obviously they would have had to have been paid for.
Yes.
Was the Department of Finance in any way involved in any of the decisions to proceed with?
I was directed by the then Special Minister of State to conduct some advertising.
Sorry, you were
I was directed. A legal direction was provided to me to provide some advertising around...
The use of the word directed is different from the use of the word ask, requested.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that for me, please?
The then Special Minister of State basically said, I want you to authorise some advertising during the caretaker period that was sensitive. I had to obey, as a public servant, a legal direction, and I did so.
So, Secretary, in order to be directed, is it true that there must have been a conversation, and would you have put a contrary view about the appropriateness?
There was a long conversation that not necessarily involved me so much, but certainly involved the Secretary of the Prime Minister and Cabinet around the caretaker conventions and how that impacted on specific campaigns.
Is it common for ministers to have to direct secretaries in regards to issues around government advertising? Because directions are, I would imagine, never having been a minister or a secretary, directions are, the last course of action, really.
Well, there's two situations. What's normal and is that, of course, as a government decision, and you're not in a caretaker period, and you go ahead and do it. The issue on this occasion was that we were in the caretaker period, and there are conventions around actions by public servants in that period of time, which I take seriously as a secretary, and my department takes seriously, and there was a contrary view. And as a result of that, the direction occurred.
I think all of us would, at all times, want to uphold the professionalism and the independence of the Australian Public Service. So if I can just understand this, we've moved into a caretaker period. Many people understand what that means. Decisions that around advertising, etc., are usually not taken. In this instance, there was clearly a debate about whether or not the advertising was appropriate. And that discussion, consultation, resulted in the Minister, the Special Minister of State, directing yourself to initiate the advertising program.
I had to authorise it, so I was directed to authorise it, yeah.
Right.
That was a legal direction to me, and I obeyed that direction.
Of course, that's right.
Mr. Chair, it's not
that the minister can't make directions. It's really about the appropriateness of the direction on this particular issue of government advertising in the period of the caretaker, during the period in which the caretaker provisions are operating.
I certainly felt that I could not take on the responsibility myself in the context of the caretaker conventions, as I understood them, and as my colleagues understood them, and therefore we asked for that to happen if they were to go ahead. Secretary,
you have been senior official in the Australian Public Service for a long period now. Are you familiar with many other instances where very senior officials or secretaries have been directed by ministers around advertising campaigns during caretaker periods?
I can't recall any, Senator, but there may have been some, but I can't recall one. I've certainly not come across it myself in the past. So unique, exceptional in your experience? Indeed.
Yeah, unprecedented even?
For me, yes.
Yes.
Whether it's unprecedented across the board, I don't know.
Well, thank you very much, Secretary, for your evidence.
Senator McKenzie, did you have something?
Well, just on that, how much did that actually cost, Mr Tune?
That campaign,
And just a reminder, they were the full-page ads in most of our daily newspapers in capital cities on asylum seeker.
yes, there were two components. There was an overseas component and there was a domestic component.
Right.
It was the domestic component, I think, that was the major issue.
Right, thank you. So just what was the cost of that campaign?
I'd have to, we might have it here with us, but I can take it on notice, certainly.
Thank you. Just after the break would be great. I just wanted to follow up on the question on notice and the figures that Senator Smith did read out that you provided to me in a question on notice that was actually in response to Senator Wong asking about the current government's advertising campaign components. And your figures end financial year 2012-13. Could you outline the spend of the 2013-2014 and specifically the measures that the Labor government used to sell their budget in that financial year?
We can give you the spend, we can update the numbers that we gave you, basically.
My understanding, just for the figures that I have, there was $21 million to promote the Gonski school reforms, $10 million to spruik the government's job plan, $10 million to advertise health services such as Medicare, which I didn't think people actually purchased, $8 million on promoting childcare assistance and $5 million for the NBN campaign. That's the list of campaigns, if you like, around the previous government's last budget that were funded. I'm just wondering if I've missed any.
Senator, I have to take on notice whether you've missed any. The full year spend on government advertising for the 2012-13 year was tabled in Parliament in a report in February this year, and that would include activity arising from the 2013-14 budget. To the extent that it happened in the 2013 year.
Second half, yes.
So that was tabled in February this year.
If you could, if that number could be provided to me some point during the day, that would be great.
Could I? You asked Senator a question about the campaign, the diaspora campaign, as it ran. The one that was discussed before that ran during the caretaker period. The total spend on advertising for that campaign, which was called By Boat No Visa, over the period of July to September, was $6.5 million.
$6.5 million?
Yeah, advertising spend.
All right. And when did that advertising spend end in September? Do you have a date?
No, I don't, although it would have ended after the election result was known. It would have ended by that point, but we can get you a date for the actual conclusion. Yeah.
Perhaps we could look to wind this up.
Just one more, Chair, and then, of course, you did advise about the break. Secretary, just to be clear, the Special Minister of State at the time was also the Commonwealth Attorney-General?
Correct.
The Commonwealth Attorney-General, who is the Chief Law Officer for the Commonwealth, makes an instruction, a direction, to a Secretary of a Department of State to deviate from the very, very long-standing conventions around caretaker periods, requiring you to authorise a government spending campaign.
I think I can't speak for the Attorney-General at the time, what his view was, but I think it was he took a different view about the caretaking conventions to my interpretation,
the Special
at
Minister
least.
of State was also the Attorney-General of the Commonwealth at the time.
That's correct.
Thank you much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you,
Well,
Chair.
thank you. The committee will now suspend and resume at 10 minutes to 2. It's 1:50.